Physics-based gameplay. When I say those words, the first thing that comes to mind might be something like Portal, Half-Life, or Just Cause. In all of those, physics plays an important role in certain aspects of gameplay, but the game isn't based entirely around physics itself. You still have hit-scan weapons and standard video game character movement and animations. Then there are other games, like Goat Simulator or Human Fall Flat. In these games, all characters and interactable objects are physics-enabled. There are few, if any, pre-made animations. Now, while fun to screw around with, most of these games tend to lack any actual cohesive gameplay and are purely for laughs. But what would happen if a game combined a unique combat system with true physics-based gameplay? The first time you launch Exanima, you'll probably be confused about how to actually play the game. There's no proper tutorial except for a very wordy manual that feels more like reading a textbook. But once you plunge into the dungeon, you'll be pulled into the world almost instantly. Nothing but a note and a torch to guide you. After encountering your first monster, you'll probably die. Exanima's combat system is clunky and confusing. In fact, in the first few hours of gameplay, it doesn't even really seem to make any sense. And that on top of unorthodox character movement that resembles something like tank controls, it can be easy to give up before even starting. But if you stick to it and keep practicing, you'll find something awesome. Not many games have such satisfying combat. Being forced to use your weapon properly and strike with the correct section at just the right distance with enough power is certainly difficult, but it makes every connecting hit just feel so good. It leads to certain things you just don't see in other games, like your weapon bouncing off an enemy or getting too close and grappling with an opponent to try and strike the first blow. You can even move your mouse in an arc to swing your character's body to add more momentum to each attack. Combining this with crouching, dashing, and lunging, you can maximize the damage of your attacks and kill enemies more effectively. Plus, it's really funny to watch your character trip over things. And on that note, the tendency of you and your enemies to get caught up in the environment adds a whole new dynamic to combat. It's easy for a wall or an object to block your attack, or for your character to stumble over a chair or bucket on the ground. It can be aggravating when it leads to your death, but overall it just adds to the already present tension and helps to truly make every fight feel like it could be your last. Shields can also be utilized to block opponents' strikes, but the blocking system is a bit odd to say the least. Your character will automatically raise a shield to defend against an incoming attack, but this can sometimes interfere with your own attacks. You can aim the shield by pointing your cursor in the direction of your enemy's weapon, but it still feels imprecise and can lead to taking a blow when it should have been blocked. Sometimes it's just more effective to dodge or to parry with your weapon, especially since the zombie-like enemies show no restraint and will continue wildly attacking without trying to protect themselves. Exanima is an unforgiving game. It will punish mistakes and not provide much reward for victories. The health bar, for example, does not regenerate. Not always, anyways. Temporary damage does regenerate, while permanent does not, unless you find an extremely rare health potion. In addition, taking full temporary damage knocks your character out for a time, with the possibility to just be knocked out again right when you wake up. Fully dying from permanent damage sends you back to the beginning of the level that you were on. This can mean losing hours of progress. I certainly do enjoy its challenge from time to time, but when it comes to Exanima, the game can be brutal. There's zero hand-holding whatsoever. But on the topic of difficult games, you could definitely compare Exanima to something like Dark Souls.
No. It's fucking midnight. I'm trying to sleep, and here you fucking are, comparing shit to Dark Souls. You know I have to fucking do this every time. Stop.
There's not a whole lot to say about the game's story, so I'll keep this part really short. Storytelling is done through a text log format. While I personally don't find this engaging at all, I suppose it can be nice to be able to disregard the story entirely if you wish. But as for the story itself, it doesn't really feel like much of a story at all. While there are some elements of a plot, there isn't enough to be able to piece together the lore to find out what's really going on. And this can be aggravating, because the world itself, though dark, dim, and filled with mostly nothing but aimless corridors, is still just so captivating. I put these two elements together into the same category because they are very closely related. The dark rooms combined with a beautiful lighting system are only made even more immersive and creepy with unnerving music and reverberating sound effects that punctuate periods of silence. Until a level is cleared and you've explored every corner, you can easily find yourself terrified of what might be through the next door or lurking in the shadows. As your character moves, sound effects accurately correspond with whatever you're wearing. For example, metal armor will clank together and leather armor will creak. Doors opening and closing echo throughout hallways. And dropping an environment item actually sounds like dropping something. The original soundtrack of the game, although at times mediocre, still matches the game's atmosphere well. Some more variation in music would certainly be nice, as there aren't a whole lot of tracks, but what we do have still works. All these things greatly add to immersion, but when every monster is dead and you find yourself lost in a maze of corridors, attention and immersion tends to wear off pretty quick. In fact, spending hours running in circles trying to figure out where to go completely pulls you out of the game and just leads to frustration. Giving a player a world to explore with no direction can be totally fine, but when players need to rely on a guide to even find the path to the next level, something should definitely be done differently. Although I feel as if it's a gimmick in most games, I think something like randomly generated levels might actually help Exanima. This could speed up the game's slow development and lead to more unique experiences for the players, even if it does end up being way more linear. I might be getting a little off topic here, but it is the confusing level design that does ultimately kill Exanima's atmosphere. For several years, Exanima was a very bare-bones game, with only a couple levels and a simple practice mode. But then the game was updated with a new mode that still keeps me coming back for more to this day. Arena gives players a way to jump right into combat without having to deal with confusing levels. It also has a team management system, so you can build up multiple fighters over time. You can enter one of these fighters in a multitude of different events. Completing events pays money to the player that they can use to buy weapons and armor, or more fighters to enter into combat. This sense of progression is incredibly satisfying. Although progress is slow for each fighter, every time they level up, they become more and more important to you, which makes it even more devastating when one is lost. The combat also feels so much more engaging in Arena compared to the story mode. All enemies are human and react and move the same way you do as the player. They block, parry, dodge, and strike more effectively based on their level. This makes the game more and more challenging as you progress to higher level events. AI fighters can also be recruited onto your team to assist in skirmishes, or you can even enter them into events solo and watch to see the outcome. Though sometimes these fights tend to drag on a bit, so it would be nice to be able to skip watching the whole thing. Even though there is no ultimate goal or endgame here, which gives it a bit of a cookie clicker feel, building up your team from nothing still feels pretty great. Exanima is a clunky and unfinished game. It's confusing and tedious, and is frustrating for hours after your first time playing. But with such a unique combat system, great visuals and sound, and an immersive atmosphere, it's pretty hard to say no. I only hope Bare Metal continues to routinely update the game and ultimately launch out of early access. This game has absolutely incredible potential to be something great.